I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. Before we begin tonight, I want you to think about a topic that we talk about a lot here on The Story. What would you say is the city of Portland's greatest challenge right now? Doesn't matter if you live in the city boundaries or not. Think about it and then send us an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com. Tonight, we are talking about the way people think about Portland and its many issues, and that is certainly our big story. We're taking a look at the Portland Insight Survey. It was commissioned by the city of Portland to get an idea of what people actually think about the city and its problems. I'll go ahead and tell you up front, none of this information is really going to surprise you. I'm betting that every one of you can tell us what people think the city's top problems are. Here they are: homelessness, community safety, and the cost of living here. Homelessness overwhelmingly takes the top spot. More than 44% of the people surveyed said that was their top concern. 21% said cost of living, and 19% said safety. By the way, if you're wondering, this was a random survey sent to 20,000 households throughout the city with additional targeted outreach to traditionally underrepresented groups. They got back about 5,300 completed surveys. Racial discrimination and climate change, by the way, were the next highest concerns, but those didn't even crack 4% of the total. The purpose of the survey was to give city leaders an idea of what's really weighing on the minds of Portlanders. They also wanted to hear from people who moved out of the city within the last few years, presumably so that leaders can make decisions and maybe make changes that would address those concerns. So let's dig into some of the responses, because those three issues are pretty closely tied together, as you'll see with some of these responses. The survey allowed people to anonymously write out their opinion on each section. Here's what someone said about homelessness. Homelessness is the biggest problem, which is tied to lack of affordability. However, the biggest issue is our handling of the homeless problem. The homeless population and permissiveness of camping everywhere has led to rampant property crimes and lack of public safety. Now, when it comes to where city leaders should focus their budget, again, overwhelmingly the response was affordable housing and homeless services. Nearly half of the survey takers chose that option, but safety services like police, fire, and 911 were next, with the next highest choice. Now, when it comes to safety, the survey asked people whether they feel safe walking around day or night in their own neighborhoods versus downtown. 74% agreed or strongly agreed with the statement, "I do feel safe walking around during the day in my neighborhood." But the answer is very different when we talk about Portland's downtown. During the day, about 42% of the people said that they feel safe walking around the central city. About 35% of the people said they do not feel safe during the day in downtown Portland. And it's a much different picture at night in downtown. 72% of the people say they do not feel safe walking around in downtown Portland at night. Only 21% of the people said, "Yeah, I'm okay with it." Let's take a look at some of the responses there. One person summed it up pretty succinctly: "It's not safe to walk alone in this city anymore." Another person: "I wouldn't go out at night because I would be afraid to get killed outside." And one respondent worried about safety and racism, writing, "Currently, I do not feel safe for myself or my wife to walk around in downtown Portland. Asian hate crimes and mental health homeless challenges changed my mindset in regards to safety. I currently do not recommend any friends or family go visit or come to Portland due to safety concerns." So pretty strong there. People reported not feeling safe on public transit as well, walking or biking through the city, even taking their kids to school. So pretty widespread. They blamed it on Portland's increased crime rates, open-air drug use, people sleeping in public areas in tents, speeding cars, and people having mental health crises. So yes, all the things you've heard about. And they also blame Portland police for either being slow to respond to their concerns, not responding at all, or not following up after they have reported things to them. Another graph that probably won't surprise you: how satisfied are people that Portland is clean? Most people not at all satisfied. Nearly 74% said Portland streets were not clean enough for them. And remember, this survey did have a decent sample size of over 5,000 people. So if none of this is surprising, why are we reporting it? Well, for one thing, it's because a lot of people are moving away from Portland and out of Multnomah County, and they're taking a ton of money with them. The Oregonian just did a big analysis of all this, and we think that is worth your time to check out. They took a look at data released by the Internal Revenue Service and found that people leaving Multnomah County from 2020 to 2021 took more than $1 billion, yes with a B, $1 billion in income with them. That's a record loss for the county. More than 14,000 tax filers and their dependents gone in a single year. That's a big number. According to the O, most of them were higher earners as well. You can check out their article. They also get into where people are going. But we wanted to hear from a Multnomah County economist for his take on how the population shrinkage affects you and me.
First, the available labor force shrinks, so there are fewer people that are able to work the available jobs. And with fewer people working, there is less money coming into the local economy. So from an economic perspective, you don't like that. But then also, with less people earning income, you have fewer people paying taxes. So city services or government services could potentially decline. And it could also lead to stuff like school closures.
So yeah, taxpayers are important. In fact, high earning taxpayers are important. Some of you might be thinking a smaller population might be nice, less traffic, smaller class sizes for your kids, maybe even some more housing available. We need that, don't we? But the economist said, nah, those benefits will be small and won't do much to offset the hit to the local economy. We're already seeing this effect play out in a smaller way when you take a look at the drop in the number of people commuting into Multnomah County every day. That number has fallen dramatically since before the pandemic, and it's impacting jobs.
This has had a huge effect, especially in Portland and Multnomah County, because there's about an estimated 59,000 fewer people in the county during the workday. It's a 6% decline from 2019. So this has had an effect on mostly service positions across the city, but mostly in the downtown core.
Isn't that amazing? 59,000 less people in the county during the workday. The economist said that leisure and hospitality employment is currently down 16% since 2019. That translates to about 9,000 fewer jobs. Let's take a look now at why people are leaving. Going back to the Portland Insight survey that we started with. When we take a look at the three biggest issues in Portland, homelessness, affordability, and crime, which one do you think has people leaving the most? Well, turns out it's affordability more than anything else. Around 37% of the people said they left Portland within the last 5 years because they found a more affordable home. The other top reasons had more to do with personal life than with wider city issues. People left to be closer to work, school, family, or friends, or for a better job or school district. Only about 10% of people said that they left the city because they were concerned about public safety and violence, and less than 7% left because of the homelessness issue. So, of the top three problems in the survey, affordability seems to be the biggest reason for people to be moving out. Okay, one last graph for you, because the whole point of the survey was to get city leaders to give them an idea of the problems, to try to help them address them. So what do people think about our city leaders and city government? You get one guess, and the first one doesn't count because you know the answer. Just over half the responders say Portland does not have an effective government. Less than a quarter of respondents, only 23%, think that city leaders are doing well. As for the written responses, many people directly blamed Portland's leaders for its current problems. One person wrote, "Because of weak political leadership, I watched my own neighborhood grow substantially more unsafe over the last 2 years." And another simply said, "The local government has failed to meet the challenges of the last 4 to 5 years. The city is in total disarray." Well, as always, we want your take as well. We know you always have great thoughts on the state of the city of Portland and how city leaders are doing to address it. Tell us your top concerns, will you, and why you feel that way. If you left Portland or Multnomah County in the last few years, why did you leave? And what do you think are the solutions to the situation that we find ourselves in? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The phone number is 503-226-5090. Coming up next on The Story, Portland's iconic elk statue is scheduled to be reinstalled next year. That's a year and a half ahead of schedule. It's thanks to a partnership between the Portland Parks Foundation and the city, but it's not going to be cheap. On Friday, we told you it's nearly $2 million to do that. We'll recap the itemized bill and share some of your thoughts about that price tag when The Story returns. Portland's Thompson Elk Statue is expected back in its historic home along Southwest Main Street sometime in 2024. That, according to the Portland Parks Foundation, which helped make a deal with the city to bring the statue back a year and a half ahead of schedule. Here's their plan. Portland Parks Foundation commissioned the design and engineering work, including a seismic upgrade, recirculating pump, and graffiti-resistant coating. They're pitching in $160,000 from donors. Then taxpayers get to foot the rest of the bill. The city will handle construction, already setting aside $1.5 million in the 23-24 budget. The grand total for all of that work that's planning to be done, it's a cool $1.9 million. 1.3 of that is for the fountain and the statue area, another $600,000 for street improvements around it. If you'd like the complete breakdown of those costs, an itemized receipt, if you will, well, you can find that from our segment on Friday. Just go to the KGW YouTube channel and check it out. But after that segment aired last week, many of you filled our email and voicemail inboxes with messages like this.
I don't know if ridiculous or stupid is a better word for putting a statue of an elk back up for $1.9 million. It's down. Why don't we leave it down, put the money towards the homeless, and just leave it as a little tiny park? Maybe they could do that for $5,000. I'd be willing to come down and donate my time to do that. It's just too bad that there's people dumb enough and stupid enough, if I would use the right word, to want to waste $1.9 million on an elk.
All right, thank you, Mike. A number of you feel like Barbara, who wrote to us, "I'm just furious that as a taxpayer, I'm paying for the restoration. Why don't the people who destroyed it pay for it?"
But the elk at $1 million plus to put the elk back, why didn't Antifa pay for this and all the criminals that defaced it and through the criminal system? To have us taxpayers pay $1.5 million to put the elk back on when Antifa destroyed it is just ludicrous.
Some of you, like Robert, wonder if that money could be used for something else instead.
Rather than pay that $1.5 million to put the elk back up, where the idiots are going to ruin it again, it's going to become a target. Why don't we give the money to the city to fix the potholes that they're supposed to be doing with that 10-cent gas tax increase? That's my opinion.
And we appreciate all opinions. And while most of you were upset about the cost, check out this email that we got from Stephen. He wrote, "Having delivered civic works and public art for a generation, I would think we got a bargain for all that work at $2 million. To be fair, we're assuming he's being serious and not sarcastic." And we'll end with this from Kevin. "I say bring them back, whatever the cost. It'll be much better in the long run and a wonderful statement. Portland is coming back. What a great symbol." We do not have a firm date for when the elk will be back, just that it's sometime in 2024. We'll keep you posted as that process moves along. Coming up next on The Story, the premiere of a brand new weekly segment. We love taking you back in time with our KGW Vault, but there's another collection of Oregon history that puts our vault to shame. And tonight, we're looking back at one of Oregon's very first ever toll roads. Stick around. We're right back after this. about that? It's time for a brand new segment here on The Story. I think you're going to like it a lot. We're calling it Digging for Old. It's the result of a partnership with the Oregon Historical Society as they celebrate 125 years of preserving Oregon history, while at the same time making it accessible to everyone. Here's how this segment's going to work. Digging for Old will be featured on Mondays on The Story, and after the show, it will always be available on the KGW YouTube channel, on our streaming service KGW Plus as well. The Oregon Historical Society has thousands of items in their care, from individual scraps of paper to the actual covered wagons that were used on the Oregon Trail. Some of them can be found inside their museum on Southwest Park Avenue in downtown Portland, but most of the collection is hidden away in a massive warehouse whose location is a bit of a secret. And yes, I have been there, so I know it's real, and eventually we'll be able to bring you footage from inside. How's that for a tease? But if you don't want to take a trip to the museum in downtown Portland, the Historical Society has an immense online collection that you can search whenever you want. Sometimes our stories will be about specific items in the collection, and then other times, like tonight, we're going to look at a few items that help tell a larger story about the history of Oregon. Let's explain our work, starting with how to access the online collection on your own.
The easiest way to get to the online collection is by going to the website museumcollection.ohs.org. From here, you can search through thousands of objects, many of them including photos and descriptions. For our first story, we searched a topic that has many of you fired up: tolls. In the search bar, we type TOLL, and it brings up 10 different objects. Let's click the first one, the eyeglasses with case, to show you what you can expect. The images are pretty cool on their own, but the context researchers have included for each object is where the real stories are stashed away. These glasses belong to one of the very first settlers of modern Oregon, named Philip Foster. Remember that name for later. But the line in the description that really caught our eye is the Mount Hood Toll Road along the Oregon Trail.
Yes, tonight we will focus on what was likely one of the very first tolls in this area, established way back in 1846. Remember, Oregon was not even a state then, just a territory. So for those of you who've told us that Oregon's unique for not having tolls and they should not be implemented, well, they've been here for at least 177 years. That's fact. That's history. This is the man who made it happen back in the 1840s. His name is Samuel Kimborough Barlow. He and his family left the Midwest and hit the Oregon Trail in 1845. Some of the items they brought with them are actually in the Oregon Historical Society's collection, including Barlow's trunk and 2 potato mashers, of all things. At the time, the overland part of the Oregon Trail ended at the Dalles because Mount Hood and the Cascades just could not be crossed with covered wagons. From the Dalles, people would take a ferry down the Columbia River to Fort Vancouver and the ultimate destination of Oregon City. But when Barlow arrived in the Dalles, it was a logistical nightmare. I mean, imagine what the airport looks like when several flights are canceled. That was kind of what the Dalles looked like in the fall of 1845. There were only a few ferries charging ridiculously steep prices, and there was a long wait. And oh, by the way, there was not enough food in the Dalles for all those people who had already traveled hundreds of miles with the little food that they could haul themselves. So Barlow and a few other families decided, you know what, let's try and find a route for the covered wagon train around Mount Hood instead of waiting for that boat ride. Barlow is credited with a quote that goes something like, "God never made a mountain without some place to go over it or around it." So around Mount Hood they went. This is a rough map of the path that they took. The journey started in late September 1845, and they finally did arrive at a farm at Eagle Creek in the present-day Clackamas County in late December. The owner of that farm, Philip Foster, remember, the man whose eyeglasses we showed you earlier. The adventure was a 3-month grind through rough terrain, with at least one section of the trail requiring some work like this to keep the livestock and the wagons safe on the steep hills. But Barlow and the others proved that there was a way for wagon trains to make it to the Willamette Valley without needing a ferry on the Columbia River. So what did Barlow do next? Well, he asked Oregon's provisional government for permission to toll the trail that he had just taken, thinking, you know, I'll amass a fortune. And they said, sure. It was officially called the Mount Hood Toll Road, but was better known as Barlow Road. Barlow formed a partnership with Philip Foster, who financed the construction of the Barlow Road with about $4,000. It took less than a year for the one-way toll road to be completed, and it opened in late 1846. In fact, this document signed by Samuel Barlow still survives today. Dated September 1st, 1846, it reads, "Be it known that Philip Foster is authorized to receive the toll of all persons traveling on the road through the mountains as my partner." And that was basically a little contract to say that, yeah, Foster can collect these tolls, even though Barlow was the one who actually had permission from the government. Here are the prices that they charged: $5 for each wagon and 10 cents per head of livestock. Google tells me that $5, by the way, is the equivalent of $198 in today's money. So, you know, kind of a steep toll, but apparently worth it for lots of folks. In the first year, Barlow Road carried around 1,000 people and 150 wagons through its 5 toll gates. Nearly 1 in 4 immigrants to the Oregon area that year arrived using the toll road. But despite the road's use and the prices they were charging, the toll venture was not at all profitable. So when Barlow's contract from the provisional government expired in 1848, he and Foster dissolved their partnership, said goodbye, and someone else took over charging the tolls. It went through a variety of private owners over the next 70 years until a state senator named George Joseph and his wife deeded the road to the state of Oregon in 1919. The following year, the road was modernized for automobiles and finally became a two-way road. It was the first highway in Oregon west of the Cascades. Much of Barlow Road was later incorporated into the modern-day Highway 26, so remember that when you're driving it. Today, the section from Government Camp to Sandy generally follows the route of the original road. There are still places where hikers can see things like wagon ruts from the first road near Barlow Creek and Laurel Hill. This is a super old photo from the University of Oregon Library. Behind those folks on the wagons is the site of the last toll gate on the original road in the rhododendron area. A replica toll gate stands in its place today. With so much history baked into a single trail that became one of Oregon's first toll roads, Barlow Road was placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1992. So, what do you think of one of Oregon's early tolls? We would also love to hear your thoughts, not only on that, but also on other pieces of history and our new segment, Digging for Old. Maybe you have some ideas for a future edition. Send them our way, will you? You always have so many great ideas. The email is thestory@kgw.com, or you can call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. We hope you're going to enjoy that series as much as we are already. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. Stick around now for the good stuff coming your way next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow at 6:30.